Welcome back. As promised, I'm going to be making a series of videos to fully show you how Matplotlib works. In today's video, I'm going to be showing how to make subplots from Matplotlib import pyplot as plt. I showed you how to make an instance of a figure by calling plt.figure. We can give it a size if we wanted to. Then we normally use plt show, and plt plot will essentially show that instance of figure. This is a white canvas, an unwritten canvas for us to go ahead, bring our data in, and make nice plots. An instance of a figure essentially means like a placeholder. You have a container that is ready for you to write graphs and pie charts and bar charts. However, we can have more little figures inside a bigger canvas. As an example, what I'm showing you here on the top right has 4 smaller figures within a bigger figure. So let's call that bigger white canvas the figure, and every color of blue, graph, orange, green, and red an axis of 0, 0, because it sits on row number 0 and column number 0. This one is an axis of 0 and 1, row number 0, column number 1, and so forth. Now that we have the blank canvas or the container for us to hold the subplots, let's go ahead and see how that actually looks without any data. I'm just going to show you how to break this nice looking 10 by 10 canvas into 4. So 2 columns and 2 rows. Let's start by calling the subplots method. I'm going to specify how many rows I want. I want 2 rows and I want 2 columns. You can see that I just converted this into 4, but it doesn't really look 10 by 10 anymore. The reason is I don't really need to make a figure instance and then make a plt subplots instance. One is enough. If I put it down here and get rid of this one, you will see that this is a good 10 by 10 divided by 4. This is subplot number 1. This is subplot number 2, number 3, and number 4. What if you wanted less number of rows? Change this to 1. But what if you wanted 2 rows and 1 column? I'm just going to stick to this one, but just remember, you can make as many as you want. You can just say 2 by 5, and that's going to give you this. But I'm going to stick to 2 by 1 for the purposes of the data that I'm going to bring in from my previous video. So if you haven't seen it, click on the top right corner link, and that will take you to the first Matplotlib tutorial I have. This format of plotting is not really stateful anymore. I would like to have control over the top plot, play with colors, aesthetics, data, what to plot, what not to plot, and then move to the next one and do the same, do any customization that I want to do. What you really want to do, you want to make a figure object and an axis object and put the output of the plt subplots into that. Does it really change anything now? It's not going to really change anything in the way you are seeing this, but if I print ax, you will see that I have 2 axes subplots. In the case that I was examining 2 by 2, I will have 4 axes subplots. This is really important because this will give you the amount of handling that you want to be able to change those plots. I'm going to revert back to 2 by 1, and I don't really want this anymore. That was only to show you. This way, you will have a figure object, which is both of them together, and an axis object, which can change from this one to the second one. I'm going to go ahead and add parameter names. So number 1, n rows and n calls. Nothing's going to change. I'm just showing you what the parameter names are. I'm going to run it. Nothing's going to change. I am producing 2 subplots. They are both directed at the axis object. Can I go ahead and say, unpack this into axis 1 and axis 2? Absolutely. What does that mean? That means now I have axis 1 for row number 1, column number 1, and axis 2 for row number 2, column number 1. This will make the handling even much easier. Now, if I print X1, you will see that it is 1 single subplot down the bottom here. X2, that's also a single subplot. Should you go ahead and unpack axis objects? Your choice. First way was to go ahead like this, and then if you printed X, you would see that it is a combination of 2 plots. So if I go print X number 0, that's 1 subplot, and print X number 1, that's another subplot. If you have seen my first video on Matplotlib, you would remember that this is what we plotted. So we had the salary, the median salary for different programming language developers. I'm just gonna go ahead, plot Python in the top axis and Java in the second axis. Insert the data probably above this cell in a separate cell. Run that. What happens if I say plt.plot age in the x-axis and Python salary in the y-axis? Let's see. You can see that I got a very confused plot. Axis object has got two subcomponents. So if I go ahead and say, I want you to plot Python in axis number 0. Let's see. This is better. It just jumped up. And what happens if I say, okay, for x1, I want you to plot age against Java salary. There we go. They look alike because they have the same color. I'm just going to go ahead and say, you can be green and with markers, with round markers. So Java at the bottom and Python up the top. I can now handle them differently just using the axis object. Let's go ahead and add a title to x number 0. So x number 0, set title. Yeah, with axis objects, we have to use the word set underscore before a lot of the commands. That's a weird one. I don't know why, but we need to use that. So set title, and the title will be median salary for Python developers versus age. That's the title for that one. I can do the same for Java. Copy that, paste it, make it x1 because I wanted to go to the second one, and just change this to Java. Cool. Now I have separate titles for each of them. I can now add X label and a Y label. Again, for X number 0, X label. We would use X label by PLT, just plt.xlabel, but now we have to say X set underscore X label is age for X0. And do the same for Java. Just change these to 1 and 1. But you can see that these two subplots, the word age is kind of overlapping the title for the next one. Very easy. You essentially say plt subplots underscore the age space. So the horizontal space. Now I have separated these two graphs really nicely and I can see them. What if now I wanted to plot all the salaries on both of them? That should be pretty easy. I will essentially say for the first one, plot age versus Python salary. And then on the same axis, plot age salary. Yep, that's the red one. And I'm just going to copy the same one. Just need to change the axis to 1. Nice. They kind of overlap. Now, you might be wondering, well, we need a legend for these because I don't know which is which. That's pretty easy. We will go ahead and say x number 0 dot legend. And if you remember, if you have seen my first video, we will add label here called Python and label the second plot all. Same for this one, Java label equals all dot legend. Now I have legend for both of them, so I can tell which one is which. I would like to reiterate what I said about axis, because I told you we can essentially, instead of doing it like that, we can unpack it to axis 1 and axis 2. That means that down here, I will have to replace axis 0 with axis 1, and I need to copy and paste axis 2 instead of axis index 1. And that will be the same thing. Nothing's going to really change. I just want you to remember how you are getting your axis and how you're going to call them. That's really important. This looks really nice, but I would like to do some housekeeping with these graphs because I can just simply get rid of the second title and just keep the top one and just say median salary for developers versus age, because I have a legend that tells you this is Python and this is Java. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to get rid of the second title and I'm just going to say median salary for developers age. Cool. Now I have only one title for both graphs. The x-axis is the same for both of them. I can just get rid of this age in the top graph because this one will be enough for both of them. Just going to go ahead and get rid of this one. Okay, that looks a bit more neater. Then the other thing is these two graphs share the x-axis. You can see that this is going from 20 all the way to 55, and that's exactly the same at the bottom. If you want to use share x, which means that I want to share the x-axis, you essentially go to subplot method and you say share x true. There we go. You don't have any tick marks here. You don't have any numbers in the top one, and they share the bottom one. I think the horizontal space is a bit too big. And if I just set it to 2, then we'll get a bit more closer, and 1, even closer. Yep, this is nice. So it's not only the x-axis that you can share. There is a share y-axis as well, but it's not going to make any sense for this one. From the very first video, you might remember that I said we can save figures from Matplotlib. Essentially, all you need to do, you'll just come down and say plt.savefig and give it a name, .png. So if I run this, it's gonna save this plot, and I'll show you what it looks like. You can see that in that one file, I have both graphs stacked. If this is what you want, brilliant. But if you want them separately, and for some reason you wanna save them separately, you will have to make some really little changes. You will have to put every one of these graphs in a separate figure. Currently, we have one figure that has 2 axes in it. But if I wanna put it in 2 different figures, I'll have to copy this. I'm just gonna get rid of everything and get rid of everything here, and then call this one Ax1 in Fig1 because I will have 2 figures, Ax2 in Fig2. And if I run this, I will have 2 figures and 1 axis for each figure. And then from there, I can save figures separately. For now, I'm just gonna delete that so you can see that, well, they look on the same figure, but they're essentially 2 figures stacked on top of each other. If I were to save them separately, I'll just go ahead and say fig, give it a name. I'm just gonna make it really obvious what I'm saving. fig1.png, and I'm gonna do the same for fig2. fig2.save fig2.png. Let's go ahead, and the figures should pop up here anytime soon, and I'll show you how they look. Brilliant. I have both figures. I'm gonna open figure 1. That's only one figure, and figure 2 is for Java. So I am able to save them separately. If you like this video, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. I have a lot of contents in the pipeline that is coming your way.